When the men in black suits called her Donna Moretti at her father's funeral, she laughed until one of them knelt and kissed her hand. Her father, the quiet accountant who'd raised her alone, wasn't an accountant at all. He was the head of New York's most feared crime syndicate. And now, by blood and inheritance, she owned it. Within days, her cousin tried to kill her. Her father's enforcer became her only ally, and the empire she never knew existed was hers to claim or die trying. The art conservator who'd spent her life restoring beauty was about to learn that some legacies are written in blood, and the only way to survive was to become the monster her father had hidden from her. Before we dive in, quick question. Where are you watching this from right now? Drop your city in the comments below. I want to see how far this story reaches. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now because it's about to rain at this funeral. Rain fell like judgment on Antonio Moretti's funeral. Elena stood beneath a black umbrella that someone had handed her. She couldn't remember who, watching men in expensive suits lower her father's casket into earth that smelled of wet stone and endings. White lilies surrounded the grave, their perfume cloying and false, like everything else about this day. She was 26 and an orphan. Her mother had died when she was 12. Now her father, the quiet, principled accountant who'd raised her alone, who'd taught her to see beauty in Renaissance paintings and numbers in patterns, was gone too. Heart attack at 58. Sudden, brutal, final. "I'm sorry for your loss, Miss Moretti." The condolences blurred together, colleagues from the art gallery where she worked. Neighbours who'd known her father as the polite man who always paid his bills on time and never caused trouble. Antonio Moretti, good man, devoted father. The epitaph on his headstone was elegant in its simplicity, just like him. Eleanor stared at those words until they lost meaning. Then she heard the cars. 3 of them. Black, sleek, expensive in a way that didn't belong in this modest Queen's cemetery. They rolled to a stop behind the church with synchronized precision, engines purring like predators pretending to be tame. The funeral director stiffened. The priest's prayer faltered mid-sentence. Car doors opened. Men emerged. 6 of them, tailored suits that cost more than Eleanor's monthly rent, dark sunglasses despite the rain, moving with the particular awareness of those accustomed to violence wearing the mask of civility. They walked toward the grave in formation, not rushed but purposeful, commanding. The crowd parted instinctively, creating a path Eleanor didn't understand. The tallest one, broad-shouldered, maybe late 30s, with sharp features and a scar bisecting his left eyebrow, approached the casket. He removed his sunglasses slowly, revealing eyes so dark they looked black in the grey light. He placed a single black rose on the polished wood. Then he turned to Elena and bowed his head. "Donna Moretti," he said quietly, his voice carrying an accent that turned Italian vows into something dangerous. "Your father was a great man. We grieve with you." Eleanor's umbrella tilted, forgotten. Rain touched her face. "I'm sorry," she said, confusion making her voice small. "I think you have the wrong—" "No, mistake, Signorina." His eyes held hers with uncomfortable intensity. "Your father was Antonio Moretti, il cantabile, and now, by blood and right, you inherit what he built." The other 5 men stepped forward and, in perfect unison, bowed. "Donna Moretti," they murmured like a prayer. Eleanor's legs went weak. The umbrella fell from her hand. Beside her, her godmother, Aunt Marie, who'd helped raise her, made a sound like choking. Her hand flew to her mouth, eyes wide with something that looked disturbingly like recognition. "Marie?" Eleanor grabbed her arm. "What are they talking about? Who are these people?" But Aunt Marie just shook her head, tears streaming, unable or unwilling to answer. The tall man extended his hand, large, scarred knuckles, a ring bearing a crest Eleanor had seen before, in her father's study but never questioned. My name is Luca Romano, he said. I was your father's associate, and I am now yours if you'll have me. Associate in what? Eleanor's voice rose, panic bleeding through. My father was an accountant. He worked for small businesses. He did taxes. Your father, Luca interrupted gently, almost kindly, was the accountant of death. Donna. He didn't count money. He counted debts. Blood debts. And now those debts, all of them, transfer to you. The cemetery spun. Eleanor's ears rang. This was insane. A mistake. A nightmare she'd wake from to find her father still alive. Still the man who'd taught her long division and how to authenticate Caravaggio brushstrokes. But Luca's expression held no humour. No uncertainty. Only the weight of truth Elena wasn't ready to carry. There's a will, reading, he continued, pulling an envelope from his jacket. Tonight, midnight, your father's study, family only. He pressed the envelope into her shaking hands. I suggest you come prepared for the truth, Miss Moretti, because after tonight, there's no going back to who you were. He bowed again, a gesture of respect that felt more like a coronation, and walked back to the black cars with his men following like shadows. Eleanor stood frozen, envelope heavy in her hands, rain soaking through her funeral dress. Around her, the remaining mourners whispered, stared, backed away like she'd suddenly become something contagious. Donna Moretti, the title echoed in her skull. Aunt Marie finally found her voice, hoarse and terrified. Eleanor, sweetheart, you need to run. Right now, leave the city, change your name. Because if what I think is true, her voice broke. Your father didn't leave you an inheritance. He left you a kingdom, and kingdoms are won with blood. But Elena couldn't run, couldn't move, could only stare at her father's casket, being lowered into the ground, wondering how you bury a man when you never really knew him at all. The black cars drove away, the rain fell harder, and Elena Moretti, art conservator, orphan, ordinary woman, stood at the edge of a grave that was swallowing more than just her father. It was swallowing everything she'd ever believed to be true. Midnight found Elena standing outside her father's study, hand hovering over the doorknob she'd touched 1,000 times. But tonight, it felt different, foreign, like crossing a threshold into a country whose language she didn't speak. The envelope Luca had given her remained unopened in her purse. She'd spent the evening searching her father's house for answers, finding only more questions hidden in the careful normalcy of his life. His reading glasses still sat on the kitchen counter. His coffee mug, unwashed, bore the faint imprint of his lips. Evidence of a man who'd expected to come home. A man she'd thought she knew. The study door opened before she could knock. Luca Romano stood backlit by candlelight, his tailored suit replaced by dark slacks and a white shirt rolled to his forearms. Less formal, more dangerous somehow. You came, he said, stepping aside. Did I have a choice? Everyone has a choice, Donna. The title sounded natural in his mouth, like he'd been practicing it for years. But some choices cost more than others. Inside, 3 men she didn't recognize occupied the leather chairs her father had loved. They stood when she entered, a gesture of respect that felt rehearsed, predatory politeness. Aunt Marie sat in the corner, rosary clutched in trembling hands, and behind her father's mahogany desk sat a lawyer Eleanor had never seen before, ancient with eyes like a hawk that had outlived all its prey. Miss Moretti. He gestured to the chair across from him. Please, we have much to discuss and little time to waste. Eleanor sat, feeling Luca's presence behind her shoulder. Close enough to protect, far enough to let her face this alone. The lawyer opened a leather portfolio with ceremonial slowness. Your father's will is unconventional. Before we begin, I must confirm, you are Elena Sophia Moretti, blood daughter of Antonio Moretti, born August the 17th, 1999? Yes. And you come here of your own free will, understanding that what you learn tonight cannot be unlearned. Eleanor's throat tightened. Yes. The lawyer slid a document across the desk. The paper was heavy, expensive, marked with seals she didn't recognize. But it wasn't English. It was Italian. Old Italian. Legal phrases that meant nothing to her untrained eye. I don't understand. Allow me to translate. The lawyer's voice carried the weight of ritual. Il sangue chiama sangue. Blood calls to blood. La corona passa al primogenito. The crown passes to the firstborn. Il debito è eterno. The debt is eternal. What debt? What crown? My father was an accountant. Your father, the lawyer interrupted gently, was Antonio Moretti, Don of the Moretti Syndicate, controller of the Port Authority unions, arbiter of disputes from Brooklyn to the Bronx. The man who decided which politicians won elections and which bodies never surfaced in the Hudson. The words hit like physical blows. No, Eleanor shook her head. That's impossible. I would have known. I lived with him. You knew what he wanted you to know, Luca said quietly from behind her. Antonio was many things, but careless wasn't one of them. He built 2 lives, one for the world, one for the shadows, and he kept them separate to protect you. Protect me from what? From this. The lawyer pressed a button on a remote. A screen descended from the ceiling. Technology hidden in her father's traditional study. Modern secrets in an old world room. Her father's face appeared, older than she remembered, recorded maybe months before his death. He looked tired, sad. But his eyes held the steel she'd sometimes glimpsed when he thought she wasn't watching. Mia cara Eleanor, his voice filled the room, and Eleanor's composure shattered. If you're watching this, then I am gone, and the truth can no longer be hidden. Tears blurred her vision, but she couldn't look away. I built an empire on necessary evils, her father continued. I am not proud of all I've done, but I am proud of you. And now, that empire, with all its power and all its sins, belongs to you. The screen went black. The lawyer slid something else across the desk. A key, gold, heavy, engraved with a crest, a crowned wolf devouring a serpent. Your inheritance isn't money, Miss Moretti, the lawyer said. It's ownership of the docks, the unions, the men in this room, and hundreds more. Your father built a kingdom beneath your feet. He paused. And every king needs a throne. Eleanor stared at the key, then at the men watching her with unreadable expressions. And if I refuse? Luca's hand came to rest on her shoulder. Gentle, but the gesture felt like a warning and a promise. Then someone else takes the throne, he said quietly. And the first thing they'll do is eliminate the rightful heir, you. Because in this world, loose ends don't survive. Outside, a car engine started, idled, waiting. The lawyer closed his portfolio. You have 24 hours to decide, Miss Moretti. But know this, your father's enemies already know you exist. Refusing the crown won't make you invisible. It will just make you defenseless. He stood, bowed slightly, and left with the 3 silent men trailing behind him. Only Luca and Aunt Marie remained. This can't be real, Elena whispered. But the key in her palm was very, very real. And somewhere in the night, engines hummed, watching her father's house, waiting to see what the princess would become. Eleanor didn't sleep. How could she, knowing that the man who'd taught her to ride a bike had also, ordered deaths, controlled crime, built an empire on blood while she'd painted watercolours in the next room? At dawn, she returned to her father's mansion in Brooklyn Heights, the house she'd grown up in suddenly foreign. The locks had been changed. She stood on the porch with her old key useless in her hand, anger finally cutting through shock. The door opened. Luca Romano stood in the threshold wearing yesterday's clothes, looking like he'd been awake as long as she had. "You changed my locks," Elena said flatly. "Your father's locks," Luca corrected. "And yes, you're not safe with the old security." "I'm not safe anywhere, apparently." She pushed past him into the foyer. "Are you going to let me in my own house, or do I need permission for that too?" Something flickered across Luca's face. Might have been respect. "It's your house, Donna. Everything here is yours. I'm just making sure it stays that way." The mansion felt different in daylight. Larger, colder, like a museum of a life she'd never actually lived. "Show me," Eleanor demanded. "If my father built this empire you claim exists, there must be evidence. Show me." Luca studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Follow me." He led her to her father's study, the room she'd been forbidden to enter as a child, the room that had been just boring work stuff bambina. Luca moved to the bookshelf and ran his fingers along leather spines until he found the right one. The Divine Comedy, her father's favourite, and pulled. The bookshelf swung open like a door. Eleanor's breath caught. Behind it, a room she'd never known existed. Small, windowless, lined with filing cabinets and maps covering every wall, New York City dissected into territories marked with coloured pins. Red for Moretti Holdings, blue for allies, black for enemies. So many black pins. "Your father was meticulous," Luca said, moving to one of the cabinets. "Everything documented, every deal, every debt, every body." He pulled out a ledger, leather-bound, pages filled with her father's familiar handwriting transformed into something clinical. Names, dates, amounts, and next to many entries, a small notation. "Risolto. Resolved." "What does that mean?" Eleanor asked, though she already knew. "It means the problem was handled." Luca's voice was carefully neutral. "Permanently." Eleanor flipped through pages, her father's life rewritten in code. Not an accountant tallying numbers, but a king tallying debts paid in ways that had nothing to do with money. "He did this," she whispered. "All of this, while I was in the next room doing homework." "He kept you separate," Luca said. "Two worlds, two lives. You were his redemption, Eleanor. The one good thing he created. He wanted you innocent." "Well, I'm not innocent anymore." Eleanor slammed the ledger shut. "So what now? Do I inherit his blood debts too? Do people expect me to—" She couldn't finish the sentence. Luca stepped closer, his presence both threatening and oddly comforting. "They expect you to lead," he said, "or abdicate. But abdication in this world means death. Your father had enemies, powerful ones. The only thing keeping them from moving against you right now is uncertainty. They don't know if you're your father's daughter in name only, or in truth." "And which do you think I am?" Luca's dark eyes searched her face. "I think you're Antonio Moretti's child, which means you're smarter than you look and more dangerous than you know." Before Elena could respond, he moved to her father's desk and opened a drawer she'd assumed was locked. Inside, a gun, small, elegant, deadly. Pearl handle engraved with initials. ESM Elena Sophia Moretti. "He had this made for you," Luca said quietly. 2 years ago, just in case." "In case of what?" "In case he died before you were ready." Luca lifted the weapon carefully, offering it to her. "In case you had to become what he was." Eleanor stared at the gun, at her initials etched in pearl, at the cold beauty of violence made personal. "I don't know how to shoot. I'll teach you. I don't want to kill anyone." "Then you'll die instead." Luca's words were brutal, but his tone was gentle. "This is the world you inherited, Donna. Refusing to see it, won't make it disappear. Eleanor took the gun. It was heavier than she expected. Cold, real. Behind them, footsteps echoed in the foyer. Quick, urgent. Luca's hand went to his own weapon instinctively, practiced, automatic. A man appeared in the doorway, young, maybe 25, wearing a leather jacket and the kind of nervous energy that came before violence. "Don Romano," he said breathlessly. "We have a problem. Marco just left a meeting with the Russos. He's making moves." Luca cursed in Italian. "Who's Marco?" Eleanor asked. Luca's jaw tightened. "Your cousin. Your father's nephew. He expected to inherit when Antonio died, and now he knows I exist," Eleanor finished. The messenger nodded. "He's saying the girl's not legitimate, that Antonio never officially named her successor, that the syndicate can't be led by someone who doesn't know the life." "Is he right?" Eleanor looked at Luca. "Can I even do this? Lead people I don't know in a world I don't understand?" Luca's hand came to rest on her shoulder. "Your father built this empire brick by brick, Elena. He was nobody once too, just a smart kid from Queens who understood that power isn't inherited, it's taken. And you think I can take it?" "I think," Luca said slowly, "that you're about to find out." Outside, a car screeched away. The messenger shifted nervously. Marco's gathering support, meeting with the captains. Some are loyal to Antonio's memory. Others... He trailed off. "Others want a man in charge," Eleanor said bitterly. "Others want strength in charge," Luca corrected. "Show them that and they won't care what gender sits on the throne." Eleanor looked down at the gun in her hands, at the maps on the walls, at the empire her father had built and hidden from her for 26 years. "Then I guess," she said quietly, "I better learn to be strong." Luca's expression shifted into something that might have been pride. "Lesson 1, he said, taking the gun from her hands and showing her how to check the chamber. "Never hold a weapon if you don't know how to use it. And never make a threat you're not prepared to follow through on." His hands guided hers, rough, calloused, surprisingly gentle. "Lesson 2?" Elena asked. Luca met her eyes. "Trust no one, not the captains, not your cousin, not even you," she finished. He didn't answer immediately, just held her gaze with an intensity that made the room feel smaller. "Especially not me," he finally said. "I'm the most dangerous one here." Then he released her hands and stepped back. "Get some rest, Donna. Tomorrow, the captains meet, and you need to decide. Are you Antonio Moretti's frightened daughter, or the woman who will make them remember why they feared your father in the first place?" Eleanor looked at the gun, now properly loaded and ready. "I'll be ready," she said. But as Luca left her alone in her father's secret room, surrounded by maps of an empire built on blood, Eleanor wondered if anyone was ever truly ready to become a monster, even if the monsters were the only ones who survived. The next morning, her cousin Marco came to visit. Elena heard the doorbell through the fog of exhausted sleep. She'd finally collapsed on her father's study couch around 4 a.m., surrounded by ledgers she couldn't stop reading. Luca answered the door. She heard voices, his, low and controlled, another familiar but harder. "Let me see my cousin, Romano. Or are you keeping her prisoner now?" Marco. She hadn't seen him since the funeral, hadn't really spoken to him in years, though they had been close as children. He was her Uncle Vincent's son, older by 3 years, charming in that careless way that masked ambition. Eleanor sat up, smoothing her rumpled clothes, and walked into the foyer. Marco stood in the threshold, leather jacket and expensive watch, smile that didn't reach his eyes. When he saw her, his expression shifted into practiced concern. "Cugina," he said warmly, opening his arms, "I've been so worried about you." She let him hug her, brief, performative, feeling Luca's presence like a shadow at her back. "I'm fine, Marco." "Fine?" He pulled back, keeping his hands on her shoulders. Elena, your father just died. You're alone in this massive house with, his eyes cut to Luca, strangers telling you God knows what. Luca isn't a stranger. He worked with my father. Worked for your father, Marco corrected. There's a difference. And now that Antonio's gone, who do you think Romano's really loyal to? You or his own interests? Luca's expression remained neutral, but something dangerous flickered in his eyes. I should let you two talk, he said quietly. Family business. He left but didn't go far. Eleanor could feel him nearby, listening. Marco guided her to the living room, settling into the couch like he owned it. Maybe he thought he did. Eleanor, we need to talk. Really talk. About what happens now. What do you mean? I mean... He lowered his voice, leaning forward. The business, the family, all of it. You can't possibly think you're equipped to handle this. Handle what? Exactly. Marco's smile was patient, patronizing. Don't play innocent with me. I know they told you about what our fathers really did, the syndicate. You knew, the betrayal stung. All this time you knew what my father was, and you never said anything. I was protecting you. Antonio wanted you kept separate from this life. But now... He ran his hand through his hair. Now everything's complicated. The captains are restless. Our enemies smell weakness. We need strong leadership, Cugina, not a girl who spends her days with paintbrushes. And you think you should lead? I think I'm the only option that makes sense. Marco's mask slipped slightly, revealing the hunger underneath. I've been groomed for this since I was 16. I know the captains. I understand the business. I can hold the territories. And me? You? He reached for her hand, squeezing it with false affection. You go back to your gallery. Live a normal life. I'll make sure you're protected, well paid, you'll want for nothing. But this world, he gestured vaguely, it's not for you. Eleanor pulled her hand away. And if I don't agree? Marco's expression hardened. Then you're making a mistake. A dangerous one. This isn't a democracy, Elena. Power doesn't wait for people to be ready. It gets taken by those strong enough to hold it. Is that a threat? It's a reality check. He stood, adjusting his jacket. Think about what I said. You have until the captain's meeting tomorrow night. After that, he shrugged, things get decided with or without your blessing. He left, his expensive shoes echoing on marble. The door closed. Luca materialized from wherever he'd been lurking. You heard? Elena asked. Every word. His expression was dark. He's moving faster than I expected. Do you think he's right? That I can't do this? Luca studied her for a long moment. I think your cousin is ambitious and desperate and underestimates you. Dangerous combination. But is he wrong? Maybe I should just let him have it? Luca's voice sharpened. And then what, Elena? You think Marco will be content with just the throne? You're a loose end, a potential rival, someone who could challenge him later. How long do you think he'll let you live? The words landed like ice water. He's my cousin. He wouldn't... This is the Mafia, Donna. Family means loyalty until it means competition. And you, whether you want it or not, are his biggest threat. Eleanor sank onto the couch, head in her hands. I don't know what to do. Then listen. Luca sat beside her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something dark and woody. Tonight, we're having dinner here, with 3 of your father's most loyal captains. You're going to meet them, hear them, show them you're not afraid. But I am afraid. Then lie. His voice softened slightly. Fear is human, but showing fear is suicide, you understand? Eleanor nodded slowly. Good. Luca stood. Now get cleaned up. Dress like you own this house, because you do. And tonight, you're going to start looking like someone who could own much more. He left her sitting in the afternoon light, wondering how you became powerful when you'd spent your whole life being taught to be kind. That night, Eleanor wore her mother's black dress, elegant, simple, expensive. She'd found it in the back of her closet, still wrapped in plastic, saved for an occasion that had never come. Tonight felt like that occasion. 3 men arrived at 8 o'clock sharp. Older, weathered, wearing respect and judgment in equal measure. Vincent Russo in his 60s. Grey hair slicked back, eyes that had seen decades of violence. Sal Torino, younger, maybe 40, with the build of someone who'd started as muscle and worked his way up. And David Chen, surprising her with his presence, proof that her father's empire crossed traditional lines. They sat around the dining room table, wine poured, bread broken, a parody of civilized. Miss Moretti, Vincent began, his voice gravelly from too many cigarettes. We appreciate you seeing us. This was my father's house, Eleanor said, surprised by the steadiness of her own voice. You're welcome here. Your father was a great man, Sal added. We owe him everything. And now he's gone. David's accent was slight, his words precise. Which creates a vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum. As does the syndicate, Vincent agreed. We need leadership, clarity. Your cousin Marco has been vocal about his vision for the family's future. I'm sure he has, Eleanor said carefully. He says you're not interested in this life, Sal pressed, that you'd prefer to step aside. Let someone experienced take the reins. Eleanor felt Luca's presence behind her chair, silent support. My cousin presumes to speak for me, she said, but he doesn't know what I want. And what do you want, Miss Moretti? David asked. Eleanor met his eyes. I want to understand what my father built, and why he thought I should inherit it. Vincent exchanged glances with the others. Understanding takes time. This business doesn't wait. Then, while I'm learning, Eleanor said, feeling her way through this conversation like crossing ice, I'll rely on people my father trusted, like you 3, like Luca. Pretty words, Sal said, not unkindly. But this world needs more than words. It needs strength, decisiveness, the will to do what's necessary. Like what? Eleanor challenged. Like punishing betrayal, David said quietly. Making examples. Your father understood that respect comes from fear as much as loyalty. And you think I can't do that? The men didn't answer immediately. Then Vincent leaned forward. Honestly, we don't know. You're Antonio's daughter, and we loved him. But you're untested. And our enemies, they're watching to see if we've gone soft. So prove them wrong, Elena said. Support me. Teach me. Give me the chance my father clearly thought I deserved. And if you fail? Sal asked. Then Marco gets what he wants anyway, Eleanor said. But if I succeed, if I become even half the leader my father was, you'll have backed the right horse. Silence fell. Then Vincent smiled slightly. You've got his eyes, and maybe a bit of his cunning. Is that a yes? It's a maybe, Vincent said. Prove yourself at tomorrow's meeting. Show the other captains you're not just Antonio's little girl playing dress up. Do that, and we'll stand with you. And if I don't? Then we'll protect you as long as we can, David said gently. But we won't follow you. The men left shortly after, their loyalty conditional, their judgment reserved. When they were gone, Eleanor sagged against the table. You did well, Luca said. They don't trust me. They don't know you yet. There's a difference. Eleanor looked up at him. What happens at tomorrow's meeting? Luca's expression was grim. You meet all 15 captains. They hear proposals for leadership, then they vote. And if Marco wins? Luca didn't answer. He didn't have to. Eleanor stood, moved to the window, stared at the city lights blurring through glass and exhaustion. Luca? She said quietly. The night my father died. Where were you? Sicily, handling business for him. So you weren't there to protect him? A long pause. No, I wasn't. Do you think... She couldn't finish the question, but Luca understood. A heart attack at 58 could be natural, could be murder, Eleanor finished. The autopsy was clean, no signs of foul play. But you suspect. I suspect everything. Luca came to stand beside her at the window. That's how I've stayed alive this long. They stood in silence, cities sprawling beneath them. Empire built on secrets and blood waiting to swallow her whole. I'm scared, Eleanor admitted. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. He turned to face her. But don't let them see it. Tomorrow, you walk in that room like you've already won. Like the throne is yours by right and blood and destiny. And what if I don't believe that? Then fake it, Luca said, until you do. Outside, a car engine started. Watching, always watching. And somewhere in the city, her cousin was making promises Elena would have to break, if she lived long enough. The captain's meeting was scheduled for 8 o'clock at Russo's, a restaurant in Little Italy that closed to the public on certain nights. Tonight was one of those nights. Elena arrived in the black Mercedes Luca had arranged, wearing a charcoal suit that made her look older, harder. Her mother's pearl earrings were her only concession to softness. Stay close to me, Luca murmured as they approached the entrance. Don't eat anything I don't eat first. Don't drink anything that wasn't poured in front of you. You think someone would poison me at a meeting? I think your cousin is desperate, and desperate men do desperate things. Inside, the restaurant smelled of garlic, wine, and old grudges. A long table dominated the private dining room, 15 chairs arranged like a courtroom. The captains were already seated. Some she recognised from the night before, others were strangers studying her with predatory assessment. Marco sat at the far end, positioned like he'd already claimed the head of the table. When Elena entered, some men stood. Others didn't. The division was clear. Cugina, Marco called out, his smile sharp. So glad you could join us. We were just discussing the family's future. Without me? Eleanor moved to the empty chair Luca held out, strategically placed between Vincent and David. We assumed you'd be busy with your art. Marco's tone made the word sound like an insult. Before Eleanor could respond, Sal stood. Gentlemen, we're here to address leadership. Antonio Moretti is dead. May he rest in peace. But the syndicate needs direction. The syndicate needs strength, Marco interrupted, standing as well. With respect to my cousin, she's not equipped for this life. I propose... The lights went out. Gunfire erupted immediately, deafening in the enclosed space. Glass shattered. Someone screamed. The table flipped as bodies dove for cover. Eleanor hit the floor hard, Luca's body covering hers instantly, his weight pressing her into carpet that smelled of wine and blood. Stay down, he hissed against her ear. More gunfire. Return fire. Men shouting in Italian, orders, warnings, curses. Then silence, heavy, deadly. Emergency lights flickered on, bathing everything in red. 4 men lay dead or dying. Marco was gone, disappeared through a back exit. And standing in the doorway were masked men with automatic weapons, scanning for targets. For her. The kitchen, Luca growled, pulling Eleanor up. Now. They ran. Behind them, more gunshots, Vincent's men returning fire, buying them seconds. The kitchen was chaos. Overturned pots, terrified staff, a back door that led to an alley. Luca kicked it open and shoved Eleanor through. A black SUV waited, engine running. But between them and escape stood one of the masked men, weapon rising. Luca moved faster, a shot, clean and professional, dropping the man before he could fire. "Get in!" Luca shoved her toward the SUV. Eleanor stumbled, her hand sliding in something wet. Blood, mixing with rain starting to fall. She looked back at the restaurant, at the carnage visible through windows, at the empire her father built bleeding out on Italian tile. "Elena, now!" She climbed in. Luca followed, slamming the door as bullets sparked off metal. The driver, Enzo, one of Luca's men, gunned the engine, tires screaming as they fled. Only when they were blocks away did Eleanor realize she was shaking, that her perfect suit was splattered with someone else's blood, that she'd just survived her first assassination attempt. "Who?" Her voice cracked. "Who sent them?" Luca was checking his weapon, jaw tight. Could be Marco. Could be the Russos seeing opportunity. Could be anyone who thinks killing you solves their problem. "Did it work?" Eleanor asked bitterly. "Am I scared enough to run yet?" Luca finally looked at her, something fierce in his eyes. "Are you?" Eleanor thought about her father, about the empire he'd built and hidden, about the gun with her initials waiting in his desk. "No," she said quietly. "I'm angry." Luca's expression shifted into something that might have been respect, or attraction, or both. "Good," he said. "Angry keeps you alive longer than scared." The SUV sped through rain-slicked streets, leaving bodies and broken glass behind. And somewhere in the darkness, her cousin was either celebrating or planning his next move. Eleanor touched the blood on her hands. Her father's world had finally stained her. And she was starting to wonder if the stain would wash off or if she even wanted it to. The safe house was in Queens, a nondescript brownstone that looked like every other on the block. Luca swept the rooms before letting Elena inside. The place was sparse. Minimal furniture, reinforced windows, weapons stored in a locked cabinet. A fortress pretending to be a home. "You'll stay here tonight," Luca said. "Maybe longer, until we know who ordered the hit." Eleanor stood in the center of the living room, still wearing her blood-splattered suit, unable to process what had just happened. 4 men died tonight, she said quietly. 5. Sal didn't make it. Luca poured whiskey, pressed the glass into her hand. "Drink. You're in shock." She drank, it burned. "My cousin tried to kill me." "We don't know that for sure." "Don't we?" Eleanor met his eyes. He disappeared the moment the shooting started. Convenient timing. Luca didn't argue. Even if Marco ordered it, he didn't act alone. Someone let those men in. Someone knew where we'd be and when. So we have traitors. We've always had traitors. That's how this world works. Luca moved to the window, checking the street. "The question is, what do you do about it?" Eleanor set down her glass, something hardening inside her. "I need leverage, information, something that makes me more valuable alive than dead." "You're thinking like your father now." "Maybe I have to." She looked at him. "The ledger, the one in my father's study, you said it documented everything. Every deal, every debt, every skeleton in every closet, from here to Albany. Then that's my insurance policy." Eleanor straightened, decision made. "We go back. Tonight. Get the ledger before Marco does. Too dangerous. The house might be watched. Then we make it fast." Her voice had lost its uncertainty. "You said I needed to prove I could lead. This is how. By taking control of my father's secrets before someone else does." Luca studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "You're sure?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." Something flickered in his expression. Might have been pride, might have been concern. Then we go now, before Marco gets smart. They approached her father's house at 2 a.m., using the back entrance through the garden. The mansion stood dark and silent, a tomb of secrets. Luca moved first, weapon drawn, clearing rooms with professional efficiency. Eleanor followed, her heart hammering against her ribs. The study was untouched, the hidden door still open from when she'd left it. Eleanor grabbed the ledger, its weight somehow heavier than before. Started photographing pages with her phone. Names, dates, crimes documented in her father's meticulous hand. "This is everyone," she whispered. "Judges, cops, politicians, all on the payroll." "That's why your father was untouchable," Luca said from the doorway, watching the hallway. "He didn't just have power, he had proof." Eleanor kept photographing, her anger crystallizing into something colder, more dangerous. Among the names, one stood out: Chief Richard Brennan, her godfather, the man who'd bounced her on his knee as a child. "He knew," she said softly. "All these years, he knew what my father was, and he helped him." "Welcome to the family business," Luca said without judgment. "No one's hands are clean." Eleanor closed the ledger, slipping her phone into her pocket. "Then I guess mine are already dirty." She turned to leave, and froze. A photograph had fallen from between the ledger's pages. Her father, younger, standing beside Luca, both smiling. But it was the notation on the back that stopped her breathing. "LR, my insurance. If he betrays me, release File 7. Eleanor looked up at Luca slowly. "File 7? His expression went carefully blank. "Your father was thorough about everything." "What's in File 7, Luca?" "Something that doesn't matter anymore." "Tell me." A long silence. Then, "Evidence that I once betrayed him. Years ago. Information I leaked that got 3 of his men killed." The words landed like physical blows. "You?" Eleanor couldn't finish. "I was young, stupid, thought I could play both sides." Luca's voice was flat, confessional. "Your father found out, should have killed me. Instead, he kept me close, said I'd spend the rest of my life earning back his trust." "And did you earn it back?" "I like to think so. But that file exists as insurance, in case I ever forgot whose side I'm on." Eleanor stared at him. This man who'd protected her, taught her, maybe saved her life tonight, and also, once, destroyed part of her father's empire. "Why tell me this?" "Because you'll find out eventually. Better you hear it from me." He met her eyes. "I'm not a good man, Eleanor. I'm useful, loyal now, but not good. If you're going to lead, you need to understand that distinction." Footsteps echoed downstairs. Multiple sets. Luca's weapon snapped up. "We need to leave. Now." They fled through the garden as flashlights swept the house. Police or enemies, at this point the difference barely mattered. In the car, speeding away, Eleanor clutched the ledger to her chest. "This gives me power," she said quietly. "Or a target," Luca replied. "Maybe both." She pulled out her phone, staring at the names she'd photographed. Her father's empire reduced to digital proof. "Tomorrow," she said, "I'm going to use this." "Use it how?" Elena's smile was cold, unfamiliar on her face. "To remind everyone why they should be afraid of the Moretti name." Luca glanced at her, something shifting in his expression. "There she is," he murmured, "Antonio's daughter." And for the first time since her father's funeral, Eleanor didn't flinch at the comparison. She embraced it. Morning came with headlines. "Massacre at Russo's, 5 dead in gang violence." Eleanor watched the news coverage from the safe house, her face occasionally visible in the background footage as Luca hustled her away. The media called her mystery woman and possible witness. They didn't know she was the target. "Marco's claiming you fled like a coward," Luca said, scrolling his phone, "telling the captains you're not strong enough for this life." "Let him." Eleanor was calm, frightening in her certainty. "I'm done defending myself with words." She'd spent the early hours strategizing, copying files, making calls to encrypted numbers her father had left in the ledger, pieces moving on a chessboard she'd only just learned to see. "The captains are meeting again tonight," Luca continued. "Emergency session to discuss Alijade's leadership in light of the attack." "Good. I'll be there." "Eleanor, I'll be there," she repeated, harder now. "And I'm bringing insurance." She held up a USB drive. "Every name in that ledger, every secret my father kept. I'm going to show them what happens if they betray me." Luca studied her, something complicated in his expression. "You're changing. I'm surviving." "It's not the same thing." Eleanor turned to face him fully. "You said my father built this empire because he understood power. I'm starting to understand it too." "And what about the cost?" Luca stepped closer, voice dropping. "Your father died alone, Eleanor, surrounded by people who feared him, but no one who truly knew him. Is that what you want?" "I want to live long enough to decide." But her voice wavered slightly. Luca reached out, fingers brushing her cheek, the first gentle touch since this nightmare began. "I failed your father once," he said quietly. "Let 3 of his men die because of my stupidity. I won't fail you." "Even though he kept that file? Even though he never fully trusted you?" "Especially because of that. I understand your world now, Elena, where loyalty is purchased and trust is expensive. Your father taught me that." His thumb traced her jaw. "But you're not your father, not yet. And maybe that's not a weakness. Maybe that's what keeps you human." Eleanor's breath caught. The space between them felt electric, dangerous. "Luca," he kissed her, not gentle, not tentative, a claim and a question and a confession all at once. Eleanor responded instinctively, her hands gripping his shirt, months of tension, of fear and unwanted attraction igniting into something desperate. His fingers tangled in her hair. Her back hit the wall. The world narrowed to heat and heartbeat, and the dangerous realization that she trusted this man, despite every reason not to. Then, the explosion shattered the moment. The safe house windows blew inward, fire bloomed in the kitchen. Luca threw Eleanor down, covering her body as debris rained. "Marco," he snarled. "He found us!" Gunfire erupted from outside. Return fire from Luca's men stationed around the perimeter. "Back door," Luca commanded, pulling her up. "Now!" They ran through smoke and chaos, Luca firing at shadows moving beyond the flames. Eleanor's ears rang, her lungs burned. A figure blocked their exit, masked, armed. Luca fired first. The figure dropped. Then another appeared, and another. "How many?" Eleanor gasped. "Too many." Luca's expression was grim. "Your cousin's not playing anymore." They burst into the alley. An SUV screeched up, Enzo at the wheel, face bloody but alive. "Get in!" he shouted. Eleanor dove into the back seat. Luca followed, slamming the door as bullets sparked off metal. As they sped away, Eleanor looked back at the burning safe house, her father's secrets going up in flames, her brief moment of human connection already ash. "The ledger," she whispered. "I left." "You photographed it," Luca reminded her, touching his side where blood was seeping through his shirt. "The information's safe." "You're hurt." "I'm alive. That's what matters." He met her eyes. "Are you?" Eleanor thought about the kiss, the explosion, the systematic dismantling of everything she'd been before her father died. "I don't know anymore," she admitted. Luca's hand found hers, squeezed once. then we figure it out together. But as the SUV raced toward an uncertain destination, Eleanor wondered if there was any together in a world where trust was currency and betrayal was inheritance. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Stop running, cousin. The throne is mine. You're just delaying the inevitable." M. Eleanor stared at the message, then at Luca's blood-soaked shirt, then at the city passing by, her father's kingdom or her cousin's grave. She typed back, "Come and take it." Then she powered off the phone and let the anger burn brighter than fear. The emergency meeting happened in neutral territory, a warehouse in Red Hook owned by Vincent Russo, guarded by men loyal to no one but money. Elena arrived at midnight with Luca at her side, his wound stitched but his movement careful. Enzo and 3 others formed a protective circle. Inside, 12 captains waited. 3 had died in the previous attack. The survivors looked wary, calculating. Marco stood at the center, positioned like he'd already won. When Elena entered, his smile was triumphant. "Kujina, you're alive. What a relief." "No thanks to you," Elena replied coolly. "Careful with accusations." Marco's voice hardened. "I lost men in that attack too. We're all victims here. Some more convenient than others." Elena walked forward, refusing to show fear despite the blood still staining her memory. "You called this meeting to claim leadership. So claim it. Tell these men why you deserve our father's throne." Marco's eyes gleamed. "Because I'm not a frightened girl playing dress-up. Because I understand this world. Because when enemies strike, I strike back, not run to safe houses like a coward." Murmurs of agreement from some captains. Elena let the insult land, then smiled. "You're right about one thing. This world requires strength. So let me show you mine." She pulled out her phone, connected it to the projector Vincent had set up. "My father kept records, detailed ones, of every deal, every payment, every secret that kept this empire running." Images flashed on the wall, ledger pages, photographs, damning evidence, including who was on his payroll. She clicked to the next slide. A list of names. The captains went rigid. Several names belonged to them. Bribes taken, crimes committed, loyalties purchased. "This is insurance," Elena continued. "My father used it to keep people in line. I'm using it to remind you that betrayal has consequences." "You're threatening us?" Marco's voice rose. "That's your strategy? Blackmail?" "No, information." Eleanor's voice was ice. "My father understood that power isn't just force, it's knowledge. And I know everything." She clicked again. Marco's face appeared meeting with the Russo family, the competing syndicate, dated 3 days before her father's death. The room went silent. "You want to talk about betrayal, cousin?" Eleanor's voice cut like a blade. "Let's discuss who was making deals with our enemies before my father's body was cold. Who stood to benefit most from his death? Who's been systematically eliminating anyone loyal to his memory?" Marco's composure cracked. Those meetings were exploratory. Those meetings were treason." Eleanor stepped closer. "And everyone in this room knows what the penalty is." Vincent stood slowly. "Is this true, Marco? You met with the Russos?" "For intelligence, to protect us." "Or to sell us out," David added, his voice quiet but deadly. The other captains were standing now, hands drifting toward weapons, alliances reforming in real time. Marco saw it happening, his coup crumbling, Eleanor's information more powerful than his ambition. "You think you've won?" he snarled at Eleanor. "You're still just a girl with her father's files. When this is over, when the real threats come, you'll fold, because you don't have what it takes to do what's necessary. Then let me prove you wrong." Eleanor pulled out the gun Luca had given her, the one with her initials. She'd practiced loading it, firing it, making it an extension of her will, she aimed it at Marco. The room held its breath. "This is what you wanted, isn't it?" Eleanor's voice was steady despite her racing heart. To see if Antonio's daughter could pull the trigger. If she had her father's ruthlessness. "You won't shoot me," Marco said, but uncertainty flickered in his eyes. "You're not a killer." Elena's finger rested on the trigger. Every eye in the warehouse watched. She thought about her father, about the empire built on blood, about the woman she'd been 2 weeks ago versus the woman she was becoming. Then she lowered the gun. "You're right. I'm not a killer." She handed the weapon to Luca. "But I don't have to be. That's what I have him for." Luca took the gun smoothly, aimed it at Marco. "Wait." Marco stumbled backward. "You can't. The captains will never—" "The captains," Vincent interrupted, "follow strength and intelligence. She's shown both. You've shown neither." "This is exile, Marco," Eleanor said. "You have 24 hours to leave New York. If you're still here after that, Luca has permission to finish what I started." "Exile?" Marco laughed desperately. "You think I'll just leave? That this is over?" "I think," Eleanor said coldly, "that your alternative is dying in this warehouse tonight. Choose wisely." Marco looked around the room, seeing no allies, no escape. His empire of ambition collapsing in minutes. "You'll regret this," he spat. "All of you. She's weak. She'll destroy everything our fathers built." "Then you won't be here to see it," Luca said quietly, gun still trained. Marco fled, scrambling toward the exit, dignity abandoned, threats hollow. When he was gone, silence fell. Then Vincent approached Eleanor, studying her with new respect. "Your father would be proud. Or terrified. Maybe both." "I'm just trying to survive," Eleanor admitted. "No," David said. "You're trying to lead. There's a difference." One by one, the captains knelt. An old tradition, an acknowledgement. "Donna Moretti," they murmured. Eleanor stood among them, her father's daughter, her own woman, something new and dangerous that this world hadn't seen before. When she looked at Luca, he was smiling slightly. "Congratulations," he said quietly. "You're officially the boss." Eleanor stared at the warehouse full of dangerous men kneeling before her and realized with equal parts terror and triumph she'd just inherited an empire. And somehow she was still alive. 3 months later. The estate in Brooklyn Heights had been cleaned, restored, transformed. Eleanor stood in her father's study, her study now, reviewing reports from the captains with efficiency that would have made Antonio proud. The syndicate had stabilized. Marco had fled to Vegas, his name now synonymous with failure. The territories held, the money flowed. And Eleanor? She'd learned to navigate both worlds, the art conservator by day who still knew how to authenticate Caravaggio, and the Donna by night who understood that sometimes the greatest art was survival itself. "You're staring at that painting again," Luca said from the doorway. Eleanor smiled at the canvas, her latest work, a portrait of her father, rendered in shades that captured both his kindness and his darkness. "I'm trying to understand him," she admitted. "How he lived with the duality. Did you figure it out?" "Not yet." She turned to face Luca, who'd become her constant, advisor, protector, and something more complicated they hadn't named yet. "Do you ever regret it? Teaching me this life?" Luca considered the question seriously. "I regret that you had to learn it, but I don't regret who you've become." "And who's that? Someone stronger than your father because you chose this path instead of inheriting it?" He moved closer. "Someone who leads with intelligence instead of just fear? Someone who might actually change what this empire means, or become exactly what he was?" "Maybe," Luca conceded, "but I don't think so." His hand found hers, a familiar gesture now, comfort and connection in a world where both were rare. "The captains respect you," he continued. "The territories are secure. Your father's enemies have backed off. You've done what everyone said was impossible." "Then why doesn't it feel like winning?" "Because you're still you, Elena. Still the girl who wanted to restore art and live a normal life. That part didn't die just because you learned to hold a gun." Eleanor looked around the study, at the ledgers and the secrets and the empire she now commanded. "I'm visiting his grave today," she said. "Want to come?" "Always." The cemetery was quiet, autumn leaves falling like whispered goodbyes. Yes. Eleanor stood before her father's headstone, now weathered by 3 months of rain and wind. "Antonio Moretti, good man, devoted father. You left me a complicated inheritance," she said aloud, not caring if anyone heard. "A kingdom built on blood and a throne I never asked for. But I'm trying, Papa. Trying to honor what you built while not becoming everything you were." She placed white lilies on the grave, the same flowers from his funeral, now a tradition. "I miss you, even knowing the truth, even understanding what you did." Her voice cracked slightly. "I wish you trusted me enough to tell me while you were alive. But maybe you were protecting me. Or maybe you were protecting yourself from seeing disappointment in my eyes." Luca stood at a respectful distance, giving her privacy while remaining close enough to guard. "I'm not you," Eleanor continued. "I won't be, but I'm your daughter. And that means something. To me, to them, to this empire we've built." She touched the cold marble, feeling the weight of inheritance and choice. "Rest well, Papa. I've got this." When she turned to leave, Luca offered his arm. She took it. "Better?" he asked. "Better." They walked through the cemetery together, past other graves holding other secrets, toward the car where Enzo waited. Eleanor's phone buzzed. A text from Vincent. "Russo meeting confirmed for Tuesday. You should attend." She typed back, "I'll be there." "More work?" Luca asked. "Always," Eleanor smiled slightly. "But that's the job, right? You don't get to stop being Donna just because the crisis is over. You could, walk away. The captains would understand if..." "If what?" "If I decided being a normal woman was easier?" Eleanor shook her head. "Maybe it is. But I'm not normal anymore, Luca. Haven't been since those men knelt and called me Donna Moretti. Do you regret it?" Eleanor thought about the question as they reached the car, about the fear and the blood and the impossible choices, about the power and the respect and the strange satisfaction of proving everyone wrong. "Ask me in a year," she said finally. Luca opened her door, helped her in with the courtesy he'd never quite abandoned despite their growing intimacy. As they drove back toward Brooklyn, toward the mansion, and the empire and the life she was still learning to navigate, Eleanor caught her reflection in the window. She looked different, harder, older, but still herself. Still Elena. Just Eleanor wearing a crown she'd learned to bear. The city sprawled before her, her father's kingdom, now hers. Every street a territory, every building a possibility, every person a potential ally or threat. She'd thought her father was an honest man. Turned out he'd been extraordinary. And maybe, just maybe, she was too. "Home?" Enzo asked from the driver's seat. Eleanor smiled at the word. Home. As if she'd ever truly had one. But the mansion in Brooklyn Heights was close enough. "Home," she confirmed. And as the car carried her back toward the empire she'd inherited and claimed and transformed, Elena Moretti, art conservator, orphan Donna, finally understood what her father had known all along. Sometimes the greatest masterpiece you create is yourself, reborn from ashes, painted in shades of blood and choice, and framed by the unforgiving beauty of survival.